"Sir, you can't be in here." That was the first thing he said to me before I'd even made it past the front entrance of the mall I partly owned. The guard's voice was flat, condescending, carrying that rehearsed tone of authority meant for shoplifters, troublemakers, and apparently me. "My name is Aaron Price. I'm 38 years old, a real estate investor, and last quarter, my company signed a lease for 3 luxury storefronts right here in Rivergate Mall. But that morning, I wasn't a businessman in his eyes. I was just a black man walking in with a briefcase." He blocked my path with his hand on his belt, just inches from the pepper spray and radio at his hip. His eyes scanned me up and down, not as if checking my ID badge because I didn't have one, but as if checking for danger. "Excuse me," I asked, my voice calm but sharp. "You heard me. We've had incidents. Just need to check where you're headed." "Incidents?" My eyebrows shot up. "Are you stopping everyone?" He didn't answer. His eyes flickered past me to the 2 white teenagers who had just slipped in carrying oversized backpacks. He didn't stop them. The shoppers slowed their pace. Some pretended not to look. Others watched openly. There was that familiar silence, thick, sticky, the kind that's made of everyone's unspoken decision not to get involved. I could have pulled out my phone and recorded him right then, but I'd learned something in my years of navigating boardrooms and backroom deals. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is keep your voice even. Make them show their cards. "I have a meeting," I said. "On the 2nd floor. Platinum Wing." He smirked, like he'd just caught me in a lie. "That's luxury retail. For store owners." I leaned in, my words slow. "Yes, store owners." For a moment, I thought he'd back down. Instead, he tilted his head, signaling to another guard down the hall. "Let's take this somewhere private." Private. That word carried weight. In my world, private meant conference rooms, NDAs, investment talks. In his world, private meant a back corridor, no witnesses, maybe a search. And as soon as his partner, a younger man, broad-shouldered, with a buzz cut, joined him, I knew this wasn't going to be a misunderstanding we could clear up in 30 seconds. They flanked me, leading me toward a service door near the food court. "Look," I said, "if this is about." "Sir, just cooperate." It was the tone that did it. The absolute confidence that they were in the right, that I was the problem. I'd seen it before in airports, in lobbies, in neighborhoods I was supposed to belong to. Inside the narrow service hallway, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The younger guard stepped in front of me. The older one closed the door behind. "Empty your bag." The air in that cramped space felt heavier. I could hear my own heartbeat, not from fear, but from the slow burn of knowing this was about more than security protocol. I set my leather briefcase on the metal table. "Do you have probable cause?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. The older guard shrugged. "We got a call. Description matches you." "What description?" "A black male, mid-30s, carrying a bag." My laugh came out like a bark. That's half the city on a Tuesday morning. The younger guard unzipped my briefcase before I could stop him. Inside of me, laptop, a few contracts, and a velvet box containing a pin set I planned to give as a gift to a new tenant. He pulled out the box, opened it, and for a second, I saw something flicker in his eyes, maybe surprise, maybe embarrassment. The older guard didn't notice. "What's this for?" he demanded. "It's called business," I said. "You might try it sometime." I knew I was towing a line, and I also knew that men like him didn't like being spoken to that way, especially by someone like me. Then the door opened, and in walked the mall's general manager, a tall woman in her 40s, with the kind of heels that announced her before you saw her. "What the hell is going on here?" The older guard straightened. "Just following up on a call, ma'am." She looked at me, then at the table. Her eyes narrowed. "Mr. Price?" Her voice cracked just slightly when she said my name because she knew exactly who I was. She'd signed my company's lease herself. "Yes," I said, keeping my gaze locked on the guard. Apparently, I fit the description. The color drained from his face. The younger guard stepped back. The manager turned to them, her voice like ice. "Both of you. My office. Now." For a moment, nobody moved. Then they obeyed. The door shut behind them, and I was alone with her. "I am so sorry," she said. "This is unacceptable." I didn't answer right away. I was thinking about the way the older guard's hand had hovered near his pepper spray, about the eyes of the shoppers who saw but didn't step in, about the fact that this wasn't the first time and wouldn't be the last that my skin would be treated like a warning label. "Apologies don't fix systems," I said finally. Her face tightened, but she nodded. I understand. Except she didn't. Not yet. What happened next would make sure she and everyone else in that mall understood exactly what was at stake. The manager escorted me back toward the main mall corridor, her heels striking the tile like a metronome for the storm brewing inside me. Shoppers turned their heads as we passed. I could feel their eyes on me, but it wasn't admiration or curiosity, it was that split-second, subconscious evaluation people make when they're deciding if you're a threat. The hum of mall chatter picked back up the moment we left the service hallway, but the tension clung to me like static. I didn't slow down. I didn't look around. I had one destination in mind, the Platinum Wing. "Mr. Price," the manager said in a hushed tone, as though we were conspirators, "I'll handle this personally. Those guards will be suspended pending investigation." Suspended. I stopped walking. "You think this is about them keeping their jobs?" She blinked. "Well, it's standard protocol while we—" "Protocol is exactly the problem," I said, turning to face her fully. "Protocol told them they could pull me aside in front of a crowd. Protocol told them to empty my bag without probable cause. Protocol will tell them, next time, to do it again to someone else." Her jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. That was one thing I appreciated about her. She knew when she was out of her depth. I kept walking. We reached the glossy, glass-lined stretch of high-end boutiques where my meeting was supposed to take place. But the moment I saw my tenant Jessica Nguyen, a young fashion designer who had signed her first lease with me last month, standing outside her storefront with a worried expression, I knew word had traveled faster than I had. "Aaron," she called, hurrying toward me. Her Vietnamese-American accent carried the urgency of someone who knew exactly what had happened without needing the details. "Are you okay?" I gave her a tight smile. "I'm fine. Just a little detour." Her eyes darted toward the manager, then back to me. Everyone saw it. People were filming. "Good. Let's go inside," I said. Jessica's boutique smelled faintly of cedar and new fabric. The polished white walls reflected the soft glow of pendant lights, and her latest design sharp, minimalist dresses in bold colors hung like art pieces. But I wasn't there to admire the space. She closed the glass door behind us. "It's already on social media," she whispered. "Someone posted the video to TikTok. You're in it. The guard's in it. The whole thing." "Perfect," I said, setting my briefcase down. Her eyebrows shot up. "Perfect. Jessica, I've been fighting this fight in boardrooms and back channels for years. But nothing forces change like a camera in the right place at the right time." She hesitated. "But won't this get messy?" "Oh, it's going to get messy," I said. "That's the point." The manager shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Price, if this goes public, the mall's reputation will take a hit." I finished for her. "And maybe that's what it needs." She opened her mouth, closed it, then looked away. Within an hour, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Friends, colleagues, journalists, everyone wanted to know what happened. The video had already racked up hundreds of thousands of views. In it, the older guard could be seen blocking my path, his hand on his belt. The audio caught our exchange, his insistence on taking this private, my refusal to empty my bag without cause, the velvet pin box being examined like contraband. The younger guard's awkward glance when the manager recognized me was the kind of detail you couldn't script. The comments section was on fire. "Imagine owning part of the mall and still getting profiled. That guard needs to be fired on the spot. This happens every day, we just don't always see it." But there were other comments too, the ones you always expect but never get used to. "Bet he was acting suspicious. They were just doing their job." Another guy trying to play the race card. I'd learned not to take the bait. Public opinion was like the tide, loud, powerful, and constantly shifting. My job wasn't to argue in the comments. My job was to direct the current. By that afternoon, the local news had called. I agreed to an interview, on one condition. They had to film it inside the mall. When the crew arrived, Jessica let them set up in her boutique. The lights, the microphones, the big camera lens, it all turned her small space into a stage. I wore the same suit from that morning. No wardrobe changes. No attempt to look more casual or approachable. I wanted viewers to see exactly what the guard saw when he decided I didn't belong. The reporter, a woman with sharp eyes and a calm voice, asked the first question as soon as the cameras rolled. "Mr. Price, what was going through your mind in that moment?" I didn't hesitate. That this was the last time it would happen to me in silence. She nodded slowly. "You've said this isn't just about one security guard. It's about a system, I said. A system where suspicion isn't about what you've done, but what you look like. A system that gives certain people the benefit of the doubt and others the benefit of the doubt's opposite. Some would say it was an honest mistake, she offered. I gave a small, humorless smile. Honest mistakes don't come with a pattern that spans generations. After the interview, I didn't leave the mall. I walked the length of the Platinum Wing, past the boutiques, the jewelry stores, the watch dealers. Every security guard I passed kept their eyes on Minute in the way you monitor a threat, but in the way you watch a fire spreading toward your building. The older guard was nowhere to be seen. Neither was his partner. Instead, I found the manager again, this time in her office. She was on the phone, speaking in a low, urgent tone. When she saw me, she gestured for me to wait. I didn't. I'm filing a formal complaint, I said. She ended the call. I assumed you would. And I'm requesting a meeting with the board of mall ownership. All of them. That's not. She paused, measuring her words. That's not how we usually handle these matters. I'm not asking how you usually handle them. There was a long silence. Then she nodded. I'll arrange it. The meeting happened 2 days later in the conference suite on the top floor of space, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The board consisted of 7 members, all white, all older than me, all in tailored suits that signaled wealth, but not necessarily style. They knew me as an investor, a leaseholder, a businessman. That morning, they were about to know me as a problem they couldn't ignore. I walked in with a folder under my arm, not full of contracts, but of printouts, still frames from the video, screenshots of the online outrage, quotes from the comment sections that showed just how quickly the story had spread. I laid them out on the table. This is your brand right now, I said. This is what people see when they think of Rivergate Mall. One of the board members, a man with silver hair and a condescending half-smile, leaned back in his chair. Mr. Price, while we regret the incident, I think you're overstating its significance. Social media moves on quickly. I met his gaze. And when it moves on, do you plan to do anything to make sure it doesn't happen again? He didn't answer. So I leaned forward, lowering my voice. Because if you don't, the next video might not just be embarrassing, it might be catastrophic. Someone could get hurt. Someone could die. And when that happens, the question won't be about what the guard did. It'll be about what you didn't do. The room was quiet. Finally, the chairwoman spoke. What do you propose? I looked at each of them in turn. Mandatory anti-bias training for all security staff. Public acknowledgement of what happened. And a commitment to hiring more diverse leadership starting with security management. There were murmurs. Resistance. The usual. But I'd come prepared for that. I slid another document onto the table. These are the press inquiries I've received in the past 48 hours. I've been holding off on responding with specifics. That window is closing. The chairwoman's lips pressed into a thin line. We'll discuss. When I left that room, I knew I hadn't just made noise, I'd planted a wedge in the door that had been closed to change for decades. But this wasn't over. Not even close. Because the next morning, I got a message from someone I didn't expect. The younger guard. It was short, almost hesitant. I need to talk to you. Not here. And when we met away from the mall, in a quiet coffee shop downtown, told me something that would take this fight to a place none of us had planned for. The coffee shop smelled faintly of cinnamon and roasted beans, a stark contrast to the sterile, humming mall corridors where our paths had first crossed. The younger guard sat hunched at the corner table, baseball cap pulled low, the collar of his jacket turned up like he was hiding from the world. When I slid into the seat across from him, he didn't look up right away. His hands were wrapped around a paper cup, the cardboard sleeve creased from the pressure of his grip. You wanted to talk, I said. He nodded, eyes still fixed on the coffee. Yeah. A long pause. The hiss of the espresso machine filled the space between us. Finally, he glanced up. I saw what happened blow up online. The video. People calling for us to be fired. I kept my expression neutral. And I need you to know it wasn't just a random stop. Not for him. I leaned back, my eyes narrowing. Go on. The guard took a shaky breath. The call he said we got? About a black male with a bag? That wasn't real. No one called. I let that hang in the air. So he lied. He nodded, jaw tightening. He'd been watching you since you came through the parking lot. Told me you fit a profile. Said guys like you shoplift high-end stores or case the place for theft rings. I didn't think he was serious until he told me to back him up no matter what. I studied him. He was young, early 20s, maybe still with that trace of uncertainty people carry when they haven't yet decided the kind of person they want to be. Why are you telling me this now? Because he hesitated, glancing around the cafe. This isn't the first time. He stopped other people. Same profile. Last year, there was an older guy Vietnam Vive pushed him against a wall and searched his pockets. Another time, a kid barely 17 got cuffed in the back hallway until his mom showed up screaming. My jaw clenched. Were any of those reported? Not officially. They just went away. Management doesn't push back. They say he's overzealous, but he's been here for over a decade. And he stopped, swallowing hard. I heard him brag once. Said his cousin's in the police and knows how to handle troublemakers. It was ugly. The weight of his words sank in. This wasn't about one mistake. This was a Paterna career built on targeting people who looked like me. And you? I asked. Why stay? His shoulders slumped. I needed the job. But after what happened to you, I couldn't just sit on it anymore. I sat forward, my voice low and deliberate. If you're telling me the truth, you're about to be part of something bigger than either of us. He met my eyes. I figured as much. That night, I called my attorney. Dana Rosa, a woman with a steel spine and a reputation for turning discrimination cases into landmark settlements. She listened without interrupting, then said 3 words that told me she understood exactly what was at stake. We go public. The next day, the younger Gardavan agreed to give a recorded statement. Dana arranged for a journalist she trusted to sit down with him, his face blurred, voice altered for protection. In the interview, he laid it all out: the fabricated call, the history of targeting shoppers of color, the unchecked aggression, the complicity of management. By evening, the story had doubled in size. It wasn't just local businessman profiled at Mall. Anna Maria was security guard exposes years of racial harassment in Rivergate Mall. The public pressure was instant and volcanic. Local activists organized a protest in front of the mall. Store owners, especially those from minority backgrounds, started speaking up about subtle and not-so-subtle harassment they'd experienced. The board's carefully curated image of Rivergate as an inclusive, upscale destination was crumbling in real time. On the 3rd day, I got a call from the chairwoman of the board. Her voice was brittle, like she'd been holding it together for hours, and was finally cracking. "Mr. Price, we'd like to offer you a private settlement." I almost laughed. "You think this is about a payout?" "There's no need for this to escalate further," she pressed. "The publicity is hurting all of us." "That's the idea," I said, and hung up. By the weekend, the protest had swelled to hundreds of people. Handmade signs bobbed in the August heat. In racial profiling, our money, our rights, Black business matters. I stood at the front steps of the main entrance, a portable speaker in hand. The crowd quieted as I raised it to my mouth. "My name is Aaron Price," I began. "Some of you know me as an investor in this mall. Others know me as the man who got stopped for the crime of walking while Black." A ripple of laughter, bitter, knowing, ran through the crowd. But what you might not know is that this wasn't an isolated mistake. Thanks to the courage of one man who stepped forward, we now know this has been happening for years unchecked, unpunished, and in full view of the people who should have stopped it. Cheers, clapping, shouts of "Tell it." Rose up. I went on. "This isn't just about me. It's about every person who's been told they don't belong in a space their money helps build. It's about every kid who's been taught to fear authority because authority sees them as a threat. And it's about holding accountable the people who think a badge is a license for bias." The energy in the crowd surged. I knew the media cameras were rolling, the live stream feeds were capturing every word. Inside the mall, the older guard Mark Lasker was watching from the security office. I didn't have to be there to picture the way his jaw would clench, the way his fingers would drum on the desk. I knew men like him. Pride didn't let them admit they were wrong. Anger didn't let them walk away quietly. By Monday morning, he was gone. The board announced he was no longer employed at Rivergate Mall. But that wasn't the end for him, because within hours, Dana filed a civil suit naming him personally alongside the mall management. Evan's testimony was the spine of the case, but we also uncovered something more damning. Mark had been reported multiple times over the years, not just to mall management, but to local police. Each time, the reports were quietly dismissed or downgraded. That pattern was about to become Exhibit A. 2 weeks later, we were in a packed courtroom for the preliminary hearing. Dana was a 4 sharp questions, No wasted words, drawing out every contradiction in the defense's story. Evan took the stand, voice steady despite the tension in the room, recounting the fabricated call and the pattern of harassment. Mark sat at the defense table, his face hard as stone. But I saw a flicker of something behind his eyes when Evan described the Vietnam veteran he'd shoved against a wall. That wasn't guilt. That was fear. Because in that moment, he knew the truth. His shield of quiet complicity had cracked, and sunlight was flooding in. The hearing ended with the judge denying the defense's motion to dismiss. The case would go to trial. Outside the courthouse, cameras and microphones crowded around me. "What do you hope comes from this?" a reporter shouted. I didn't hesitate. Accountability. And a reminder to anyone in power. If you abuse your position, someone will be watching. And when that happens, you might just make the last mistake of your life. The headline wrote itself. From that day on, Rivergate Mall was never the same. Some said I'd ruined its reputation. I say I gave it a chance to earn one worth having. And as for Mark Laskery disappeared from the public eye, his career in security finished, his name forever tied to the moment he chose suspicion over sense. That moment at the entrance, when he decided to stop me, that was the day he lost everything. The trial began on a crisp October morning. The air outside the courthouse had that sharp, electric quality, part anticipation, part tension. Inside, every seat was filled, journalists, activists, mall employees, curious onlookers. I took my place behind Dana at the plaintiff's table, my suit pressed, my expression steady. Mark Lasker sat just 15 feet away at the defense table, his tie knotted too tightly, jaw set in a permanent scowl. He didn't look at me. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair and a gaze that could cut through stone, called the proceedings to order. Dana began with an opening statement that felt like the first strike of a hammer on iron. "This case," she told the jury, "is about more than a single incident. It is about a man with a position of power, a pattern of abuse, and a choice again and again to treat certain people as criminals based not on their actions, but on their skin." The defense tried to paint it differently, Mark as a seasoned professional acting on instinct, the stop as a regrettable misunderstanding. But every time they spoke of instinct, it sounded more like prejudice wrapped in a badge. Over the next week, witnesses took the stand. A retired store clerk, Latina, told of being stopped while carrying merchandise back to her car after a shift mark had made her empty her bag in front of customers. A father described how his teenage son, half black and half Korean, had been detained by Mark for matching a description of someone who'd stolen headphones. The boy had been on his way to buy a birthday gift for his sister. Evan testified again, this time in open court. He spoke clearly, detailing the fabricated call, the instructions to back him up no matter what, and the sick feeling in his gut that had grown over months. Mark's attorney tried to rattle him. "You're a disgruntled former employee, aren't you?" Evan's answer was firm. "I'm a man who decided to stop being part of the problem." When it was my turn to take the stand, I looked straight at the jury. I've been followed in stores before. I've been asked for extra ID when others weren't. I've been told, "You're not what we expected," in meetings where I was the one signing the checks. But what happened that morning at Rivergate Mall was different. That wasn't a passing slight. That was a deliberate decision to treat me as a suspect before I said a single word. Dana guided me through the events, how Mark had blocked my path, insisted on a private search, ignored the fact that 2 white teens had entered with backpacks right behind me. "And when the manager recognized you?" she asked. "He realized he'd made a mistake," I said, "but not the one he thought. He thought he'd misidentified me. The real mistake was assuming the sight of a black man in a suit and a briefcase meant danger." The jury was listening. I could see it in their posture, in the way their eyes followed each word. The defense called Mark to the stand. His voice was gruff, defensive. "I was doing my job," he repeated like a shield. "We've had theft issues. I acted on a credible description." "Who gave you this description?" Dana asked during cross. "A source." "A source you cannot name?" He shifted in his seat. "It came through unofficial channels." "So, to be clear," Dana pressed, "you received no verifiable report, no official call, and yet you chose to detain my client in a back hallway and search his belongings." Mark's jaw worked, but no words came. Dana let the silence stretch, the jury's eyes locked on him. Then she delivered the question that sealed it. "Mr. Lasker, if my client had been white, wearing the same suit, carrying the same briefcase. Would you have stopped him? His hesitation was all the answer we needed. Closing arguments were a study in contrasts. The defense urged the jury not to ruin a man's life over one misunderstanding. Dana stood, walked slowly to the jury box, and spoke with the clarity of someone holding truth in her hands. You've heard the pattern. You've seen the choices. This is not about ruining a life, it's about stopping a man from continuing to ruin others. And it's about sending a message to every institution that hides behind protocol while allowing prejudice to flourish. Your days of looking the other way are over. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. I spent those hours pacing the hallway, staring out the tall windows at the courthouse lawn. Every so often, Evan would check his phone for updates. Dana sat calmly, reading case notes, her composure unshakable. When the bailiff finally called us back in, the air felt heavier, charged. The jury filed in, the foreperson carrying the folded verdict form. On the claim of racial discrimination, the foreperson read, "We find in favor of the plaintiff." A ripple of sound swept through the courtroom. On the claim of unlawful detention, "We find in favor of the plaintiff." My hands curled into fists, not in anger, but in the effort to hold steady. The damages awarded were substantial enough to make the mall's board wince, enough to end Mark's financial stability for good. But more than that, the verdict carried weight beyond money. Mark's face was pale, his eyes downcast. The man who had once stood in my way so sure of his authority now looked like someone staring at the ruins of his own making. Outside, cameras swarmed. Microphones thrust forward. "What does this mean for you?" a reporter shouted. I didn't hesitate. It means we proved what too many people are still trying to deny, that discrimination isn't just history. It's alive, it's dangerous, and it has consequences. Today, those consequences caught up to one man. But tomorrow, we keep pushing for the system that enabled him. I looked into the nearest camera, my voice unwavering. To everyone watching, if you think calling out injustice will ruin your life, remember this. Silence lets injustice ruin someone else's. Speak up. Always. Weeks later, Rivergate Mall launched a complete overhaul of its security protocols. Anti-bias training became mandatory. A diversity council was formed, and leadership changes began, real ones, not just for show. Evan got a new job, this time in community outreach. Jessica's boutique thrived, her customers doubling after she became one of the faces speaking publicly about supporting minority-owned businesses. As for me, I kept walking through that mall. Some people averted their eyes. Others stopped to shake my hand. The guards nodded, some with genuine respect, others with careful politeness. But the thing that stayed with me most was the quiet knowledge that the moment Mark decided to stop me, he thought he was asserting control over my life. He didn't realize he was ending his own career, his own credibility, his own standing in the community. That moment was the last time he'd wield power over someone without consequences. That moment was the last mistake of his life. And it started with 5 words. "Sir, you can't be in here." Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.